What would you think if I told you that the most potent force of attraction a woman can wield has nothing to do with perfecting her appearance, mastering a set of dating rules, or contorting her personality to fit a masculine ideal? What if the magnetic pull that awakens a man's most primal, instinctual drive to pursue is not something she does, but something she is? This isn't about strategy, it is about alchemy. It is about the subtle, almost imperceptible habits of being that signal a woman's deep connection to her own sovereign core. Today, perhaps more than ever, the world bombards women with external solutions for an internal dynamic. It teaches scripts for a play that should be improvised from the soul. The truth, however, lies buried deeper, in the rich, dark soil of the psyche, in the archetypal energies that have governed the dance of masculine and feminine for millennia. The man, in the Jungian sense, is not consciously seeking a partner who checks a list of boxes. His unconscious, his anima, that inner feminine ideal he projects onto the world, is searching for a resonance, a frequency that promises not completion, but a profound, necessary, and challenging journey toward his own wholeness. He is drawn to the woman who is already on her own sacred journey of individuation. Her habits are not tricks to ensnare him, they are the external evidence of her internal liberation. When a woman cultivates these specific ways of being, she doesn't just become attractive. She becomes a living question, a mystery his psyche feels an overwhelming need to explore. She becomes the symbolic gateway to his own undiscovered potential, and the pursuit becomes not a game of conquest, but a pilgrimage toward meaning. And it begins not with a whisper, but with a silent, seismic shift within her own spirit. The first habit, and perhaps the most misunderstood, is the cultivation of a sacred unpredictability. This is not the chaotic, trauma-driven inconsistency of a dysregulated nervous system. It is not about playing games or manufacturing drama to keep him on his toes. That is the language of the ego, desperate for validation. This, instead, is the unpredictability of the individuated soul. It is the natural state of a woman who has stopped living according to an external script and has started moving to the rhythm of her own internal drum. She has untethered her choices from the need for approval. Her yes is a full-bodied resonance, her no is a complete and unapologetic sentence. Because her compass is internal, her path is not a straight line that can be easily mapped or predicted by an outside observer. She is a landscape, not a road map. To the masculine psyche, which often seeks to understand, categorize, and solve, this quality is both maddening and utterly intoxicating. He cannot figure her out using logic alone because she is not a problem to be solved. She is an experience to be surrendered to. One day, she is consumed by a creative fire, lost in her art, her work, her purpose, radiating an energy that is entirely self-contained. The next, she is open, receptive, and deeply present, her warmth a sudden and welcome shore. This is not a calculated shift, it is the authentic expression of her inner seasons. He learns that her attention is not a resource to be endlessly extracted but a gift bestowed from a place of genuine inspiration. This awakens the primal archetype of the explorer in him. He is not pursuing a predictable prize but charting a vast and fascinating territory. He must engage his intuition, his feeling function, his own neglected inner wilderness, to simply keep pace with her. This authentic unpredictability reveals a woman who is not waiting for life to happen to her. She is the protagonist in her own myth. Her plans are not contingent on a man's participation. Do you feel the difference? A woman operating from her wound self will subtly, or overtly, leave empty spaces in her life for him to fill, the unspoken invitation to be her weekend plan, her emotional savior, her source of validation. She broadcasts a neediness that the masculine ego might initially enjoy fulfilling but that the masculine soul will eventually find draining. It feels like an obligation. The woman practicing sacred unpredictability, however, lives a life that is already full. Her cup is not just full, it is overflowing. Her engagement with the world is passionate and self-directed. She might spontaneously decide to take a solo trip, enroll in a course that fascinates her, or spend an entire weekend in solitude, not as a punishment to him, but as a necessary communion with herself. This isn't a performance of independence, it is the genuine article. For a man, this is a profound psychological trigger. It signals that her happiness is not his responsibility. This is a monumental relief. It liberates him from the role of entertainer or emotional support system and invites him into the much more compelling role of partner and fellow adventurer. He realizes he is not needed to complete her world, but he might be chosen to share in it. The desire to be chosen by a woman who needs nothing from you is infinitely more powerful than the desire to be needed by a woman who is empty without you. Her full life becomes an invitation to elevate his own, to meet her on a higher plane of existence where two whole beings come together not out of lack, but out of abundance. Flowing directly from this inner-directed life is the second habit, the mastery of psychological space. The modern world is an assault on silence, a constant demand for immediate response. The ping of a notification, the expectation of a quick text back, these are the subtle chains of a collective anxiety. Many women, conditioned to be accommodating and to manage the emotional states of others, overgive their presence. They rush to fill every silence, to answer every question immediately, to close every gap of uncertainty. They tether their energetic body to his, constantly monitoring, reacting, and seeking reassurance. This energetic clinging, however well-intentioned, suffocates the very masculine desire it seeks to secure. It communicates a deep-seated fear of absence, which is unconsciously translated as a lack of self-worth. The woman who awakens pursuit has a different relationship with space. Her silence is not a punishment, a calculated withdrawal in the no-contact rule style. Her silence is a sanctuary. It is the space she requires for her own thoughts to crystallize, for her own emotions to be processed, for her own soul to breathe. When she does not respond to a message for several hours, it is not because she is playing a game, it is because she is immersed in her reality, a conversation, a project, a moment of quiet contemplation. She is built what the Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius called the inner citadel, a fortress of the mind to which she can retreat. Her psychic center of gravity is firmly located within herself, not in the digital ether between her and him. This creates a vacuum. And in the physics of human desire, a vacuum begs to be filled. Her absence is not a void of nothingness, it is a palpable presence of her own full life, and he can feel it. This mastery of space is a profound act of self-respect. You are teaching the world, and him, how to treat you. By not being perpetually available, you are non-verbally communicating that your time, your energy, and your focus are valuable resources. They are sacred. This forces him out of a passive, consumerist mindset where her attention is on tap, and into an active, intentional one. He begins to value her responses more because they are not guaranteed. He starts to bring more quality to his own communication because he knows he is not competing with boredom, but with her rich inner and outer life. This dynamic shifts him from a position of casual entitlement to one of respectful engagement. Furthermore, this psychological space gives his own mind the room it needs to wonder, to desire, to miss her. Desire cannot flourish under a microscope of constant contact. It is in the space between interactions that emotions deepen, that memories are replayed and romanticized, that the seed of longing begins to sprout. When she is not there, he is left with the echo of her presence, her unique laugh, the challenging way she sees the world, the scent of her skin. He gets to experience the contrast between his world with her in it and his world without her. It is this contrast that fuels the engine of pursuit. She is not pushing him away, she is giving him the invaluable gift of his own longing. She is allowing him to discover, on his own terms and in his own time, just how much her presence truly means to him. This is an act of profound trust, not just in him, but in her own intrinsic value. This trust in her own value leads us to the third, and perhaps most courageous, habit, embracing the sacred wound. So much of modern dating advice revolves around projecting an image of perfection, being the cool girl, the unbothered queen, the woman who has it all together. This is a fragile mask, an ego construction designed to avoid the terror of being seen as flawed. It is an attempt to sidestep the messy, chaotic, and beautiful reality of the human experience. The woman who creates this shallow persona may attract, but she cannot sustain deep, soulful connection. She invites a man to fall in love with a ghost, a carefully curated representative of her true self. When the inevitable cracks in the facade appear, the connection shatters because it was built on an illusion. The woman who awakens a man's primal need for authentic connection takes a different path. She is engaged in the arduous, noble work of excavating her own shadow. She has journeyed into the underworld of her past, her traumas, her heartbreaks, her perceived inadequacies, and she has not come back empty-handed. She has returned with the gold of self-awareness. She understands her triggers, she recognizes her patterns, and she has learned to mother the wounded inner child that resides within her. She does not perform her pain for sympathy, nor does she hide it in shame. Instead, she integrates it. Her wounds become sacred. They are the cracks through which her light now shines, portals to a profound empathy and a quiet, unshakable strength. She has transformed her personal history from a source of shame into a source of wisdom. This is the archetype of the wounded healer. When a woman carries her wounds in this way, it has a startling effect on the masculine psyche. She is not a damsel in distress broadcasting a need to be rescued. The rescuer archetype in a man, while potent, often leads to codependent dynamics where he needs her to be broken so he can feel strong. It is a relationship built on a power imbalance. The woman who has embraced her sacred wound short-circuits this pattern. She communicates non-verbally, "I have already been to hell and I have learned to be my own savior. My scars are not signs of weakness, they are a testament to my resilience." This doesn't intimidate a conscious man, it inspires his deepest respect. He intuits that he is in the presence of someone real, someone who will not crumble under the pressures of life or project her unhealed trauma onto him. She can speak of her past struggles with a calm detachment, not as a victim, but as a survivor who has distilled meaning from her suffering. This creates a space of profound psychological safety. He realizes he can bring his own shadows, his own failures, his own wounds to her without fear of judgment or collapse. She does not need him to be a perfect, impenetrable hero. She invites his wholeness by embodying her own. This kind of vulnerability is not weakness, it is the highest form of courage. It is an invitation to a connection that is not about two perfect halves meeting, but about two whole, imperfect souls daring to be seen in their entirety. This is the connection the masculine spirit craves beneath the ego's desire for conquest, the raw, unfiltered, and deeply healing power of true intimacy. This integration of her shadow self naturally gives rise to the fourth habit. She learns to speak in the language of the unconscious. Our hyperlogical, data-driven world primarily values masculine forms of communication, direct, linear, factual, goal-oriented. Women are often encouraged to adopt this mode of speech to be taken seriously, to state their needs clearly, to be better communicators. While clarity is valuable, an over-reliance on this logical verbal channel can leave the deeper, more primal layers of connection untouched. It is like trying to describe a symphony using only mathematical equations. You can convey the structure, but you lose the soul, the emotional resonance that truly moves the listener. The unconscious does not speak in spreadsheets and bullet points, it speaks in symbols, in archetypes, in metaphor, in dreams. The woman who understands this does not abandon logic, but she transcends its limitations. She communicates on multiple levels at once. She speaks to his ego, but also, and more importantly, to his soul. This is the way of the oracle, the priestess. When she talks about a challenge at work, she might frame it as a mythic quest, a dragon to be faced. When she expresses a feeling, she might use a powerful natural image, a still lake, a gathering storm, a stubborn root. She uses language that is rich with sensory detail and emotional texture. This is not manipulative or vague, it is evocative. It bypasses his analytical mind, which is programmed to debate and problem solve, and plugs directly into his feeling center, his intuition, the realm of his anima. He doesn't just hear her words, he feels their meaning on a cellular level. This creates a shared inner world, a secret garden where their connection can deepen beyond the confines of the mundane. This form of communication is inherently playful and creative. It fosters a sense of shared reality that is unique to the two of them. She might give him a playful nickname that captures a core aspect of his character, one that only she sees. They might develop inside jokes that are actually complex, shorthand references to shared emotional experiences. This is the creation of a private mythology. It is the invisible thread that binds two people together in a world of their own making. This symbolic currency is infinitely more valuable than a constant stream of "how was your day" texts. It's the difference between exchanging information and sharing a soul. When a woman communicates in this way, she is not just talking to a man, she is casting a spell. She is weaving a tapestry of meaning around them. He finds these interactions incredibly compelling because they nourish a part of him that society often starves: his imagination, his sense of wonder, his connection to the mythic. Most of his life is spent in the realm of the literal and the practical. She offers him a portal to the symbolic, the numinous. She speaks not just to the man he is, but to the man he could be, the hero, the king, the wise man slumbering within him. Her communication isn't a demand for him to fix her problems, but an invitation for him to participate in the epic poem of her life, and his own. This awakens a desire not just to possess her physically, but to understand her mysteries, to learn her symbolic language, and to become a character in the beautiful, unfolding story she is telling with her very existence. The mastery of this deeper form of communication reveals a woman who is not looking to a man to be the author of her story. She is the storyteller, the weaver of her own fate. This psychological sovereignty is the bedrock for the fifth and culminating habit, the one that amplifies all the others into an irresistible force, the practice of radical non-attachment. This is perhaps the most advanced and powerful state of being, and it is a concept deeply rooted in Stoic philosophy, from Seneca to Epictetus. It is the profound understanding that the only things truly within our control are our own thoughts, judgments, and actions. Everything else, the feelings of others, the outcomes of events, whether he calls or not, is external and ultimately beyond our dominion. Most relationship anxiety stems from a desperate attempt to control the uncontrollable. A woman becomes attached to a specific outcome, a commitment, a marriage, a certain kind of future. She then contorts her behavior, sacrifices her needs, and polices his actions in a futile effort to force this outcome into being. This attachment creates a constant undercurrent of fear, and a man can sense this fear as a palpable pressure. It feels like a cage slowly being built around him. He is no longer a person she enjoys, but a project she must manage, a goal she must achieve. This suffocates his freedom, and with it, his authentic desire to choose her. The primal drive to pursue withers when the chase feels orchestrated and the outcome feels like a foregone conclusion he is being pressured into. The woman who practices radical non-attachment operates from a completely different paradigm. Her self-worth is an internal constant, not a variable dependent on his validation. She enters a connection with openness and desire, but without the clinging need for it to go a certain way. She enjoys his presence deeply when he is there, and remains whole and centered when he is not. This is not emotional detachment or coldness, it is emotional freedom. She has uncoupled her inner peace from his external behavior. Epictetus taught this dichotomy of control, and she lives it. She focuses her energy on being the most authentic, vibrant, and virtuous version of herself, and she releases her grip on the outcome. This creates an astonishing paradox. By releasing the need to control him, she becomes the most magnetic force in his life. Her lack of neediness is a breath of fresh air. He feels no pressure, no expectation, no subtle emotional manipulation. All he feels is an authentic desire to be in her presence because her presence feels like freedom. He knows that if he shows up, it's because she wants him there, not because she needs him there to regulate her emotions or validate her existence. This liberates him to pursue her from a place of pure, unadulterated choice. The pursuit is no longer about fulfilling an unspoken contract of neediness. It becomes an active, conscious, and enthusiastic movement toward a woman who represents a sovereign kingdom he wishes to enter as an equal, not as a ruler or a savior. He pursues her not to capture her, but to be worthy of the freedom she so effortlessly embodies. This Stoic principle of non-attachment is the ultimate expression of a psyche that has done its work. It is the natural result of a woman who has cultivated her own full life, habit 1, who respects her own energy, habit 2, who has made peace with her past, habit 3, and who communicates from a place of depth and creativity, habit 4. It is not a strategy she employs, but the peace that radiates from her individuated core. Think of the sun. The sun does not chase the planets, demanding they orbit it. The sun simply burns with its own immense, self-generating fire. Its gravitational pull is not an act of will, but a fundamental property of its being. The planets orbit it not because they are forced, but because it is the natural order of things. So it is with the woman who embodies this principle. Her emotional center of gravity is so strong, so rooted in her own self-worth and purpose, that it creates its own gravitational field. She is not anxiously checking her phone, analyzing his words, or trying to decipher the future. She is busy tending to the fire of her own becoming. This quiet confidence, this deep-seated peace, is profoundly unsettling to the male ego and deeply attractive to the male soul. He recognizes that he is dealing with a different kind of power, not the power of manipulation or control, but the power of a woman who is her own source. He realizes that the only way to get closer to this light is to move toward it, to enter its orbit willingly, and to be warmed by a fire that she is not burning for him, but for herself. This journey through the 5 habits is not a quick-fix guide to manipulating male desire. It is a map back to the feminine soul, a call to the arduous and glorious work of individuation. Each habit is a stepping stone on the path to reclaiming your own psychic territory. To cultivate sacred unpredictability is to break free from the prison of others' expectations. It requires you to ask yourself, what do I truly want in this moment, separate from what anyone else wants from me? It is an act of rebellion against the good girl conditioning that demands you be pleasing and predictable above all else. It is the decision to become the author of your days, to fill your own life with so much passion and purpose that a man's presence becomes a wonderful addition, not the central theme. You must learn to see your own life as the primary adventure. Where is your curiosity leading you? What skills are you hungry to learn? What landscapes, both inner and outer, are calling to you? When you start to answer these questions honestly, your life naturally becomes more dynamic and less predictable. You stop waiting by the phone because your hands are busy building a life of your own design. This is not about creating a facade of being busy. It is about the deep, soul-satisfying work of being genuinely engaged with your own existence. This is the energy that truly captivates. It's the energy of a woman who is in love with her own life. A man sees that and he doesn't just want to be with you, he wants to learn from you how to live with that same fire. Then, you must practice the art of creating sacred space, both for yourself and for the connection to breathe. This requires a confrontation with your own anxiety. Can you tolerate the discomfort of the unknown? Can you sit with the space between texts without filling it with catastrophic fantasies? This is a form of spiritual discipline. Every time you resist the urge to immediately respond, to chase for reassurance, to fill the silence, you are casting a vote for your own self-worth. You are affirming, on a somatic level, that you are whole and secure, with or without his immediate validation. This is shadow work in action. It is observing your ego's desperate need for certainty and choosing instead the quiet power of self-possession. This practice extends beyond digital communication. It's about having evenings and weekends where you are genuinely unavailable, not as a tactic, but because you are nourishing other parts of your soul, your friendships, your family, your hobbies, your solitude. You are creating a life with multiple, strong pillars of support. This makes you less emotionally dependent on any single person. To a man, this signals incredible stability. He intuits that you will not make him the sole source of your happiness, a burden no mortal man can successfully bear. He sees a woman who is a fountain, not a drain, and he feels an instinctual pull to come and drink from the life-giving energy she cultivates. Her space doesn't scream "go away." It whispers, "I am so rooted in my own world that you are free to come and go as you please, but you will find nothing else out there quite like the peace within my orbit." And as you build this fortress of self, you must have the courage to inspect its foundations. This is the call to embrace your sacred wound. It is the work of turning toward your pain instead of running from it. Where have you been hurt? What false beliefs about yourself did you internalize from those experiences? The ego will tell you to hide these parts away, to present a flawless exterior. But the soul knows that true power lies in integration. This might mean therapy, journaling, shadow work practices, or simply radical self-honesty. It is the process of looking at your scars and saying, "This is a part of my story. This is what taught me compassion. This is what forged my strength." When you no longer feel shame about your imperfections, you radiate an aura of deep self-acceptance that is incredibly rare and beautiful. You stop projecting your insecurities onto him. You don't get triggered into old patterns of accusation or withdrawal because you've done the work to understand their origins. You can discuss difficult topics with a calm that comes from knowing you will be okay regardless of the outcome. This is what it means to be an emotionally safe harbor for a man. He doesn't have to walk on eggshells around your unhealed trauma. He can relax, be himself, and trust that you are not a fragile object he might break, but a resilient soul who has already weathered her own storms. He feels drawn to this strength not to exploit it, but to rest in it, to find a partner who is a true equal in the journey of life. With this integrated strength as your foundation, your communication will naturally evolve. You will begin to speak the symbolic language of the soul because you are more in touch with your own. Pay attention to your dreams, to the images that arise in your mind, to the metaphors that feel true to you. Start to weave this richness into your conversations. It is about shifting from a transactional mode of relating, "What did you do today?" to a transcendent one, "What did today feel like?" Was it a chapter of comedy, tragedy, or adventure? This invites him out of his logical, day-to-day mind and into a more creative, expansive space with you. It's a way of saying, "I see the poetry beneath the prose of your life." It acknowledges the archetypal dimension of his experience. Is he battling a metaphorical dragon at work? Is he on a quest for some kind of holy grail in his personal life? By speaking this language, you validate the deepest, often unspoken, narratives of his masculine soul. You become the one person who sees not just the man he is, but the myth he is living. This creates a bond of unparalleled depth. He becomes addicted to the way you see the world and the way you see him. You are not just his partner, you are his co-creator, the bard who helps him make sense of his own story. This is a role no other woman, operating on the superficial plane of modern dating, can fill. The pursuit becomes a quest for more of this shared meaning, this sacred narrative you build together. All these streams of inner work flow into the great ocean of non-attachment. This is the ultimate letting go. It is the final realization that you cannot control another human being's heart or mind, and that your own peace should never be held hostage by their choices. This is where you integrate the wisdom of the Stoics into your love life. Practice viewing the connection from a higher perspective. See it as an experience, a dance, a journey that has its own intrinsic value, regardless of the destination. When you find yourself getting anxious about the future, bring yourself back to the present moment. Focus on what is in your control, your own thoughts, your own kindness, your own integrity. Ask yourself, if this connection were to end tomorrow, would I be okay? The work of the first 4 habits is to make the answer to that question a resounding yes. A yes, not of bitter resignation, but of serene confidence. Yes, because my life is full and beautiful on its own. Yes, because my sense of self is not built on his presence. Yes, because I have faced my own darkness and I know I can survive. When you can honestly feel this, your entire energetic signature changes. The subtle vibration of fear is replaced by a calm hum of self-possession. You stop leaking energy and worry and start radiating it as warmth and presence. This is the state that a man's primal instincts are wired to recognize as high value. It signals health, stability, and psychological freedom, the ultimate prize. The pursuit becomes his soul's natural response to the undeniable gravity of a woman who has finally, and completely, come home to herself. Let's be clear, this is not a passive state of being. It is an active, ongoing practice of self-creation. The woman who moves in this way is constantly engaged in a dialogue with her own soul. She is her own greatest project. Her life is a canvas, and she is the artist, mixing the dark pigments of her shadow with the brilliant hues of her joy. Her allure is not a static quality, it is the dynamic, ever-changing light that emanates from a person who is relentlessly committed to her own growth. She is not chasing perfection, which is a sterile and lifeless goal. She is embracing wholeness, which is messy, vibrant, and alive. The man in her presence feels this vitality. He is not just drawn to her physical form, he is drawn to her life force. He sees that her well of happiness is deep and is fed by her own internal springs. This is a profound relief to the masculine, which is often burdened by the unspoken cultural expectation that he must be the sole provider of a woman's happiness. With her, that pressure evaporates. He is not being auditioned for a role, he is being invited into a dance. The dynamic shifts from one of performance and evaluation to one of mutual discovery and authentic expression. He can finally take off his own armor, because he senses he is in the presence of a woman who has no intention of going to war, only an intention to explore the truth. Consider the psychological toll of living any other way. The woman who bases her worth on external validation is in a constant state of precariousness. Her emotional stability is a fragile house of cards, vulnerable to the slightest breeze of his mood or attention level. This is a state of profound bondage. She is a slave to his perception of her. To break these chains is the true meaning of empowerment. It is not about gaining power over a man, it is about reclaiming power over yourself. It is about declaring that your emotional well-being is non-negotiable and will no longer be outsourced. This internal declaration changes everything. When you interact with a man from this sovereign state, he feels it immediately. You listen differently, not for clues about what he thinks of you, but with genuine curiosity about who he is. You speak differently, not to impress or persuade, but to express your authentic self. Your compliments are more potent because they come from a place of genuine admiration, not a desire to curry favor. Your boundaries are respected because they are not presented as threats, but as simple statements of fact about what your well-being requires. You become less of a reactor and more of an observer of his behavior, and more importantly, of your own. You are anchored in the deep, calm waters of your own being, watching the ships of emotion and external events pass by without being capsized by them. This journey requires a conscious withdrawal of your psychic energy from him and a reinvestment of it into yourself. Imagine all the hours spent analyzing texts, worrying about the future, and trying to become what you think he wants. Now, imagine redirecting that immense life force. What could you create? What could you heal? What could you become? This is the work. It is the deliberate, moment-by-moment choice to turn your focus inward. When the impulse to check his social media arises, you choose instead to read a page of a soul-nourishing book. When the urge to send a needy text hits, you choose instead to go for a walk and connect with your own body. Each of these small choices is a revolutionary act. It is a rewiring of your neural pathways away from obsessive attachment and toward radical self-love. Over time, this practice builds an unshakable foundation of self-trust. You learn that you can, in fact, survive and even thrive without constant external reassurance. You discover a source of peace and joy within you that is independent of any relationship status. This is the great treasure. The irony is that once you truly find this inner wealth, once you stop seeking it in others, you become magnetically attractive to those who are healthy enough to recognize its value. He sees that you are not an empty vessel hoping to be filled, but an overflowing fountain, and he naturally feels a desire to be near that source of life. This path is not for the faint of heart. It will demand that you face your deepest fears, the fear of being alone, the fear of not being chosen, the fear of being truly seen. It is a path of subtraction, not addition. You must let go of the need for control, the addiction to validation, the comforting illusions of the ego. You must be willing to walk through the fire of your own anxieties to emerge on the other side. But what awaits you is not just a man's pursuit, it is your own freedom. It is a state of being so grounded, so peaceful, and so authentic that the presence or absence of a romantic partner ceases to be the defining metric of your happiness. The man who is destined to be with a woman like this is not looking for a project or a subordinate. He is looking for a queen to stand beside him, an equal partner who challenges him, inspires him, and meets him on the soul level. He is not pursuing her to complete his life, but to amplify it. He recognizes that her wholeness is not a threat to his masculinity, but the greatest possible gift to it. It frees him to be his most authentic self, to pursue his own highest potential, knowing he has a partner who is doing the same. The pursuit is no longer a game of cat and mouse, but the noble and instinctual journey of one sovereign soul drawn to the magnificent light of another. Ultimately, the habits that awaken a man's primal need to pursue are the very same habits that lead a woman to her own liberation. They are two sides of the same coin. The goal is not the pursuit itself, but the inner state that makes the pursuit an inevitable, natural consequence. It is about becoming a woman who is so deeply rooted in her own worth, so fiercely committed to her own truth, and so serenely detached from outcomes that she becomes a force of nature. She is the mountain, unmoved by the passing clouds of his interest or disinterest. She is the ocean, whose depths are not stirred by the changing tides on the surface. This is the ultimate empowerment. It is the realization that the key you have been searching for was never in his pocket, it was in your own all along. The journey to unlock a man's desire is, in the end, the journey to unlock yourself. You stop asking, "How can I make him want me?" and you start living the answer to the question, "Who must I become to be truly free?" When you embody that freedom, you don't need to chase love. You become the space where love wants to reside. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.